Hello students, can you see in my hand I have lots of flower. Can you guess the topic for the today lecture? Today I will explain you sexual reproduction in flowering plant. So these flowers are very important because they are the reproductive unit of the plant. I would like to explain you the parts of the flower with the help of diagram as well as the real flower. It is a flower. In case of flower, I would like to explain you like this. Flower, it has a stalk that is called pedicel. Then this stalk become broaden and it make a place for the attachment of all parts of the flower, that is called thalamus. Okay, now it has four rows. The outermost is usually green and they are called sepals, followed by the next row that is called petals. Now inside this, the third row is about the stamen. It has a basic structure of anther and filament. In a flower, there may be 3, 4, 6 or even infinity number of stamens may be present, and then jointly we will give the term androecium. Inside the androecium or the innermost row is called gynoecium. Gynoecium may have again one or more than one pistil. Pistil is the basic structure of gynoecium. It has three parts. The part that is attached to the thalamus, that is called ovary. Next is the style, and last one is the stigma, which hang outside with the help of a style to collect the pollen grains for the reproduction. So these are the parts of the flower, and this diagram is called LS of flower. How we can go LS of flower? For that, we have to cut the flower in longitudinal way. In this way, we will go for the section of a flower, then we will open it and we will get such rolls. You can observe like this. You can observe here, this is the thicker part, upper part is a stigma like umbrella, then very thin one is the style, and here it has stamen, which are not clear, so much clear as we have drawn in this diagram. So I have another flower where you can observe these stamens very clearly. This is another flower. The sepals, petals are white but having too much fragrance, and then you can observe the inner rows like this. I can show you. Here this is stigma, style, and at the base there will be the ovary, and look, you can observe these stamens having this anther and filament. Very clear structure. You can observe this structure. You can draw all the rows of flower by doing the LS of flower. Here the androecium is male reproductive part and gynoecium is female reproductive part. Now I will explain about the function of all these parts. Anther is the place where male gametes will be formed and they are released in the form of pollen grains in the form of yellow dust. As you can observe in this, there are a yellow dust. When you will touch any flower, that mature flower, you can feel this dust on your hand. These are the pollen grains and they carry the male gamete. Next, when this ovary will mature, then inside this ovary there is formation of female gamete will take place. These female gametes are present inside a very special structure that is called ovule. As many seeds you can observe in any fruits or vegetable, that much ovules are present in that ovary. So the egg or the female gamete is present inside this structure called ovule. This is the formation. This formation takes place in the sexual reproduction. Here, at the time of gamete formation, that is at the formation of pollen grain in anther, and egg cell in ovary. There is a main step will take place that is called meiosis division. Meiosis division is mandatory in the process of sexual reproduction to maintain the genetic material in the next progeny. Now, after the formation of pollen grain, there is a need of the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the plant of the flower of the same species. The transfer of pollen grain is called pollination. This pollination can be of two types. Self-pollination, when the pollen grain from the anther of the flower will transfer to the stigma of the same flower or the flower of the same plant, then it is called self-pollination. Second type is cross-pollination, when the pollen grain from the anther of a flower will transfer to the stigma of a flower of another plant of same species, then it is called cross-pollination. So, the pollen grain transfer to the stigma. What are the next steps? Here we can explain it with the help of this diagram. When the pollen grain reach to a stigma of the same species, then due to the chemicals released by the mature ovary, they start developing. There is the germination of pollen grain take place and it makes pollen tube. These pollen tubes carry two male gametes. And this pollen tube grow towards the ovary and it bring the male gamete up to the ovule, and then the process of fertilization will take place. Now in case of flowering plant, there are special method of fertilization because there are two male gametes. Here now the one male gamete will fuse with the egg cell. Male we can represent like this, having the haploidy N set of chromosome. It will fuse with female gamete having the haploid chromosome and it will form zygote. Now it has 2N set of chromosome. This process of formation of zygote, this fusion is called syngamy. Next step is there. I explained you that there are two gametes in the flowering plant. Second male gamete will reach into this central cell and it will fuse to this two polar nuclei. So second male gamete having the chromosome number N, it will fuse with the polar nuclei. It is N plus N and it will form a central cell will convert into endosperm mother cell. These three will fuse together and this is the outermost cell wall, and now this central cell is called endosperm mother cell and the haploidy is 3N. As there is fusion of two nucleus, that's why this fusion is called triple fusion. This is the specific feature of angiospermic plant, and as there are two types of fusion take place, one is called syngamy, second is triple fusion. That's why this process is called double fertilization. This is the process of fertilization. Now, next topic comes that what are the post-fertilization changes. Now, this zygote, this cell will divide a number of times and it will form embryo. Embryo is a future plant, and at the same time this structure, ovule, it has this outer covering called integuments. These integuments will convert, it become hard, and eventually this ovule will convert into seed. Here the endosperm mother cell will divide and it will form endosperm. What is the function of endosperm? It supply nourishment for the development of embryo. Embryo, it is the future plant for the generation of new progeny. Okay, it is protected inside the structure that is called seed. What is the seed? This ovule convert into seed, and the integuments ovule become hardened and they convert into seed coat. So this is the post fertilization changes. Again, the remaining part that here is the ovary, it will ripen and convert into fruit. What happened to the other parts like this style and stigma, sepals and petals, usually they fall off. This is the post fertilization changes. Now next is about seed. Seed are the future plant and they germinate when they get the appropriate conditions for the germination. If we soak any seed over the night, then we are able to remove the seed coat and then we can observe the embryo. Embryo, it has an embryonal axis having plumule and radicle. Plumule will develop into shoot system and radicle will develop into root system. Here two cotyledons are shown. Cotyledons, they store the food for the development of embryo. When this plumule and radicle will develop into the sapling, for that the required nutrition will come from the cotyledon, and that process is called germination of seed. Like I can show you the seeds, post fertilization changes, maximum things fall off, and like in this flower you observe the ovary, very small one. When it ripens, it becomes too big. Here the style, stigma, petals fall off, but still the sepals are there. So some exceptions are there. Search in your kitchen which fruit or vegetable has the sepals even after the ripening of ovary. This is the question for you. And when the seeds are formed and we can remove, this is a kind of seed, a bean seed. It is very hard, but after the soaking overnight, we are able to remove its seed coat like this. Okay, so after removing the seed coat, here we can open these two parts. These two are the cotyledon and here is the embryo, the embryonal axis that will form the future plant after the germination. I hope you get through the sexual reproduction of flowering plants. Thank you.